This guitar is a project I've had cooking for about going on 4 years now. It started off as a short scale bass and ended up as a guitar. First thing I did when I was switching it up, I got the body done, and then I felt unconfident, so I stopped working on the bass. Then about 2 years later, I picked it back up, routed all these holes for the equipment, messed that up, put it down for another 2 years, came back to it, and pushed along, made it work. Main thing that was holding me back was this back cavity. I tried to do it to the dimensions of this Floyd Rose, but just having some major troubles with it. So this is the guitar. After I put it down, the bridge wouldn't fit in exactly right. You can see it's like 2 millimeters from the hole on the right side and in the perfect spot on the left. So I just had to do a little bit of routing, and I had it taped up to give me a little bit of a guide, and then I just went in with the router, trying to do it to the best of my ability. And as you see, left a little bit on the bottom, and I just chiseled that out. When I came back to it, I threw an old Squire neck onto it and got the electronics working and all that. Got the bridge in place, ended up having to just route it out a little bit better. Still very far from perfect. After playing around with it, I noticed the action was super high with the 3 springs in the back, so my first order of business was putting on 5 springs. And I don't know if you could tell from the playing, but it was slightly out of tune because the scale length for the Squire neck does not match up with this guitar, which would cause more problems later. But first order of business is fixing that action. I got it down low with the 5 springs, so it's sitting right. After I put on Squire neck, it was the wrong scale length, so all the frets were out of tune. After I decided to change out the Squire neck for this homemade one, I needed to fix them up with epoxy to the connection for the neck and the neck itself to make it a little bit better of a connection point. This neck I made earlier was fretless because I don't have a jig for slotting frets, so it's a real challenge. I've ran into that problem making the main bass. But as you can see, I'm just pulling off the tape, checking it out. It looks pretty decent. Yeah, I slotted the holes before, so that's why I had to get the epoxy in there to fill up all those gaps. And as you can see, it's a little bit messy. I really just kind of went gung-ho with some painter's tape, and it turned out all right. Some of it's mostly mixed well, but there were a couple points that I could feel it getting on my fingers, that gross epoxy when it's mixed wrong. But for the most part, it was pretty nice, and I was able to just cut out those other sections of the epoxy that were still a little bit moist. Just so the neck hole's coming out. You can see it looks alright. a little cleaned up, pretty far back from where I had it, and I got it so that the neck just about fits in there. A little bit of a gap, but not the end of the world. Gotta go back in there, clean it up with a little file and sandpaper. Yeah, one thing I'm struggling with on this build is this little tiny section to carve the neck out of. Really, it's not ideal to have the router on this section and then you've got this hole right here. So you're really just balancing the router on this, so getting this bottom section even is quite challenging. But it's coming along. A little file should do the trick. This is the process of me sanding down the neck. I was probably going for about 5 hours, but I just got this little section here. I had a 7.5 radius block, which is pretty steep, especially for a guitar. And you know, that Floyd rose I got off Amazon kind of doesn't allow for that much of a radius, but it's all I had, so kept it going, looking decent. Alright, we got this neck in pretty good shape after sanding it. All it really needs now is a little bit of oil. Got the tuning knots in there. And the last step, look at these bones. I got these because I got a couple of projects that are gonna need specifically cut cattle bones. It's gonna go right there. The reason being is that this width is a little bit smaller than most guitars, so it's gonna have to be a little custom. But yeah, let's get into it. Cut these in half. Cutting these with the coping saw isn't the most ideal way to do it. Ideally, I'd use a bandsaw or a scroll saw, but it gets through it pretty decently. There's nothing a coping saw can't do, really. And as you see, I'm just cutting it directly in half, and then I go around and try to get around the size I need, and then I sand it down with it cut in half here. You see, it's a pretty good section I need, and the bone will look pretty thin right there, but I don't need it to rise up too far for such a big nut. Obviously, it's a lot larger than most, so it's my experimentation. And here's the final product. I was messing around with real thick nuts because I was curious how they would make the resonance of the open strings and just change the sound of the guitar in general. And as you can see, I got it there. I glued it on. I definitely could have brought it down a lot lower and get that radius a little better, but that's where I had it now. And in conclusion, this guitar turned out pretty good for a project that I thought was dead in the water. And I mean, it probably should have stayed that way. I just wanted to experiment around a little bit more with some other stuff. Managed to try out a fretless guitar, which has its ups and downs, and definitely pretty down with the scale length being a little bit shorter than a normal guitar, so it doesn't really feel natural to play at all. The body shape, I definitely like this style of like a skinny V guitar. The electronics, I didn't do anything to after setting them up like 2 years ago when I first came back to it and painted everything. But like I said, I'm just happy to get it done. This was a long time coming, and I'm just happy I got to the end of this project and got a playing guitar that I'm happy with. Thanks for watching Henry's Dream Machines. This is the first machine to come out, and I'm just happy I got it done. If you want to stick around for more weird projects, please consider subscribing. and I'll see you next time.